Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm just about to do my dishes, so I figure, hey, what the heck? Why not do a recording while I do it? It helps me pass the time, right? And I hope you guys don't mind that I do that. But I hope you're all doing well out there. Um, Coronavirus continues, right? Here in Canada, uh, I'm a bit I'm a bit disappointed by how our government. I mean, our government is acting correctly, without a doubt. It's not succumbing to the absolute worst aspects of the capitalist death cult, um, but it's definitely being influenced by the capitalist death cult. Lots of the aid that they've been promising, lots of that kind of stuff is starting to come with strings, starting to come with applications, things you got to apply for, all of that kind of stuff. When it could just be automatically done. And it should be automatically done because as we move forward and as we begin to pressure the government to maintain some of these measures, I openly say that we should pass this basic income and we should keep the basic income permanent. I think it's insane that there's even a debate on this anymore, and I feel like that debate comes straight from ignorance, and that you can thank your media for ensuring that people don't understand how the basic income functions or why it functions. It's becoming more and more clear that they want to treat this like an emergency measure. We absolutely should not let that be the case. More specifically, they're trying to treat it like an emergency measure for the COVID crisis, and ignoring completely that the capitalist death cult creates crises for millions of people. Millions of people are living with crises. There's no reason for that to be the case. It is cheaper to have a basic income than to pay for the cost of poverty. And at this stage in the game, what we are fighting against is a capitalist death cult. And in the States, they've revealed it. It's mask off. They're not even pretending. The call to sacrifice people to this COVID virus for the sake of the economy is fascism. Black and white. There's no other word to describe it. The death cultists really do want to sacrifice the lives of your family members and your loved ones. And it's your family members and it's your loved ones. Let's be extremely specific about that. It's not them. It's not them that's going to make the sacrifice. They're sent. These millionaires and billionaires are going to go live in a bunker for a little while, right? They're going to go hang out with all their, pedophile friends and people like Jeffrey Epstein, right? And they'll ride out the storm, sacrifice a few million people. And it's at this stage that I really think one of the things I really think that we need to actually start talking about is the fact that these people are sociopaths, and we need to start taking that very seriously. It's obvious that they're sociopaths, right? Like if you're saying we're going to sacrifice millions of people for the benefit of number go up stonks, you're a sociopath. If you are defending the genocide of millions of poor people, which is exactly what we're talking about, right? You're picking a group of people and you're sacrificing them. That's called a genocide, okay? We should call it that. It should be called that. These fascists want to eradicate the poor. They want to eliminate them. And even more than that, I think that it needs to be taken seriously that they are enjoying the idea of doing so, right? These people are not thoughtlessly saying these things or thoughtlessly moving in this direction. They are sociopaths who desire, who want to hurt people, right? They want to hurt people. I think that that's something that we really need to start taking seriously and start talking about. That if you're a sadist or a sociopath, the way that our rulers are clearly sadists and clearly sociopaths, they're not standing there blithely saying, "Oh, maybe we should just murder a couple million people." Yeah. Oh, what? They are relishing the idea of being in the position where their decisions can murder people, right? They get off on it. They want to murder people. That's really, really obvious. The second you actually pause and actually think about it, right? If you're somebody like Ted Bundy, right? Like if you're a serial killer, you get off on killing people. That's your MO. You want to go find a person and you want to kill them. And that feeds some sort of dark lust that exists inside of you. That you want to find a vulnerable person or find an individual and you want to murder them. We all at least have seen previews for Dexter, right? We all understand how this works. That there's this kind of deep-seated need that they have to kill. And these sociopaths who have been kind of given carte blanche permission to murder our soldiers and murder people overseas sort of freely, are now being presented with a opportunity to murder a lot of American citizens and potentially Canadian citizens as well. And it looks like they're trying to do it. And again, I think it's really important for us to actually understand they're not doing that kind of thoughtlessly. They're trying to fuel their desire to murder people. And I honestly I don't think this is an extreme position to take. I think it's really obvious what's in front of us. I think it's really, really plain. It's just I'm willing to actually call them for what they are, which are sociopaths, clearly. And I'm willing to state that they're clearly deriving enjoyment and pleasure from this. That they find pleasure in keeping people desperate. They find pleasure in keeping people on the hook. They are deriving pleasure, which shouldn't be surprising at all. These people support pedophiles, people like Jeffrey Epstein, right? Like, both Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were on those flights. Like, Jeffrey Epstein was their buddy. They clearly do not care about the well-being of people around them, outside of how it sort of fuels their obvious mania for self-gratification and their sadistic desire to do harm to others. I mean, how else do you... Like, what do you think pedophilia is? It's just this, like, extreme dark desire to spoil innocence. Like, it's this like, real overriding sensation that exists in people to abuse and take advantage of others. And they're able to do it. And so along comes this coronavirus, and many of them are looking at it and being like, oh boy, we could eliminate a whole bunch of these poor people, a whole bunch of these non-productive citizens, right? What a burden they are to have to be taken care of and have to be shown dignity and basic human compassion, right? What a burden for our society to have to deal with. Better to just let them die. And in the meantime, when we go to our pedophile parties and we do drugs with our pedophile friends, we'll probably brag about how we got to kill 1 million people. Yeah, I've become completely unrepentant towards these sociopaths. Here in Canada, I feel like the Liberals are not sociopaths, obviously. They're just gullible courtiers who actually think that the corporate sector is at all helpful for anyone, as opposed to a parasite that should be expunged from the society. I kind of on the fence about the Conservatives, honestly. I have in the past called them sociopaths. I think that they definitely foster that. They're certainly racists. They certainly are... without a doubt, they're certainly where the fascists go to vote. I mean, that seems to be almost a conservative strategy at this point, is to court the fascist vote, right? Make sure you have the racists, make sure you have the fascists, and that's how you build party unity. And you can actually see that with Maxime Bernier's situation, right? Maxime Bernier, his big complaint, and remember, he got like 49% of the vote against Andrew Scheer, right? So there's a huge proponent. And I mean, fascists like Kevin O'Leary definitely supported Maxime Bernier. So there's definitely this huge component. And when Maxime Bernier loses that, he goes off to create his own party because the conservatives aren't fascist enough for him. So he needs to make another party, which incidentally doesn't do very well, right? The fascists don't go with him. They stay with the conservatives because the conservatives are fascist enough. Yeah. I take a look at what Doug Ford is doing during this period of time. He's taking the opportunity to privatize more services. He's taking the opportunity of crisis to give money to, corporate sector banking kind of situations and things like this. And money for the workers? No, forget them. It's going to be up to the liberal federal government to actually take care of that. And the Ford administration will like pound on the pulpit about like, oh, look how much money we're giving to healthcare. It's like, yeah, you're giving the money that you cut back, right? You're giving the money that you cut back. I don't care about you. Like, you're obviously a huckster. You're obviously a con man. I mean, Doug Ford himself is a sociopath. Like, he's a bully. He's a drug dealer. He obviously, like, there are these articles that were coming out recently about Doug Ford, like, being like, oh, wow, look how well he's handling the situation. Literally, they hand him a cue card. He reads from the cue card. And then he leaves the podium the second somebody asks a question, and somebody else answers the question, because Doug Ford's an illiterate boob who doesn't know anything and takes pleasure from hurting other people. That's his MO. And I don't know that we should let him off the hook because he managed to read some lines from a paper really well, right? He doesn't have any ideas. He doesn't have any thoughts. The only thing that these conservatives actually care about is looking good through this crisis so that when it ends, they can actually be like, look at the leadership that we showed during the corona. I'm like, what leadership? What are you talking about? Oh, you mean the leadership of realizing that your policies are a universal failure? The leadership of suddenly having to backtrack on the absolute most abhorrent aspects of your bill. And you're not even the most abhorrent, like, just some of the worst stuff you've done. Like, and you're going to backtrack on it, and we're supposed to pat you on the back because you realized you're a failure and that your ideas are a failure and that you're just propping up a capitalist death cult that's interested in abandoning us the second it possibly can. Is that what we're talking about? Like, that, to me, this is like a huge tipping point. This whole, even the suggestion that maybe we should just let people die. Like, those people should be in jail. Like, for real. If you stood up and you said, maybe we should just let the coronavirus go through and kill a bunch of people, you should go to jail. And it should just not even be a conversation. You just should go to jail. You are saying maybe we should commit a genocide against poor people. Unfortunately, I have yet to see anyone here in Canada have the audacity or the willingness to be able to do. And just imagine, just like, even like, if you're a sociopath that gets off on the misery of others, like, you don't even need to have that kind of policy make it through, right? Just think of how much pleasure it would have given them to even suggest a thing, right? To even suggest a thing, to watch the angst. This is one thing, nobody actually talks about this, but like, spreading around that kind of malice and angst, right, is an objective. The cruelty is the point. That spreading around that kind of malice and spreading around that kind of fear, right? They say that kind of thing, and then they turn around and they're going to laugh about it amongst their friends and their colleagues. They're going to laugh about how they owned the libs, right, with their sociopathic behavior, and how they get off on watching people squirm, right? Meanwhile, people are fighting for their lives against a system that's clearly designed to betray and destroy them, like, pretty clearly, pretty obviously. If I was in the States right now, I'd be buying a gas mask and I'd be buying a gun. Without a doubt, I would have a gun right now if I was in the States. And I would be talking to everyone around me and I would be organizing because... Oh! Ooh! Had a